Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Coach's Corner University podcast. I am your host, Paul O'Neid, and today we're going to do our first ever ad read, so bear with me. The Coach's Corner University podcast is brought to you by Coach's Corner University. Use code PODCAST100 to save $100 off of our education collective with over 200 hours of continuing education lectures. And if while you're there, register for one of our continuing education courses for CEUs through NASM and the NSCA. We're also sponsored by Master Athletic Performance. Visit www.masterathletic.com and work with one of our 7 coaches where we truly are raising the bar for coaching. We're also sponsored by Barefoot Shoes. Save on Barefoot Shoes, 10% off when you use code ONEED. We're also sponsored by TC Nutrition. You can use code TCXONEED to save 10% there. And then you can also save 10% off at baconandbarbells.co with code Paul10. Now that we've got that out of the way, and I didn't forget what I was saying for the 37th time, I'm happy to be joined by a good friend of mine and a phenomenal coach, Brandon Caron. Brandon, thanks for sitting with me while I muddled my way through that.
It was my pleasure. A moment I'll never forget.
It was my first.
That was your first.
You were my first. It's also the first podcast where I'm not in bed in the last 6 weeks, 8
There
weeks.
you go.
So this is a big one. This is a big one. For those of you who don't know Brandon, give us a little bit of your intro story spiel.
Sure thing. So start like way back there.
Yeah.
Grew up as a total nerd. Bounced around schools quite a bit. Wasn't misbehaving. It was just life and stuff like that. And then lived with my father for a time, and he was a big nerd. Like loved video games, cartoons, all that stuff. It rubbed off on me, and I sort of stuck with that for some time through my junior years, and then into high school, and then I got to university, and I don't know what it was, but when I left for university, I was living with my mom at the time. She just becomes an addict, absolute addict for fitness. And I was like starting to do it. Like I was starting to work out with her a little bit, she had a personal trainer at a Good Life near me.
Okay.
I would leave school on lunch, bike to the Good Life and find her there. And I would just like follow her and her trainer around, like whatever they're doing, I'm trying to do. And sort of started to get the bug. But when I went to university, she got crazy about it. Left her career. She had like 20 years into her career at that point. High performer. Leaves her career, just like ups and leaves. I had no idea what was going on. Leaves it. Becomes a professional athlete. Goes to the CrossFit Games multiple times to compete. Like she's a badass. And so I'm coming home from university after, how long's university? It's like 8-9 months at a time, every semester or whatever. And I'm, rail thin. My mom's got like striated delts, 6-pack abs. She's like deadlifting 300 pounds. And I'm like, okay, something needs to change here. Like,
when your mom's more jacked than you, there's a problem.
Clearly more jacked. Like it's not even a contest. And I'm like, okay, well, I can't keep just playing video games in my basement. So I basically cold turkey, just like I gave away all my video games and all that stuff. Like I had one of my brothers. I was like, here, take everything. He's like, what do you want for it? I want you to take it. Get it out of my face. And had a bit of a turnaround in life at that point, and basically like stopped doing I was drinking and partying and all that stuff, and stopped all that altogether and caught the bug, right? Really got into lifting, sort of like general lifting at first. And then of course my mother's doing CrossFit at a games level athlete. So I started doing that and became a trainer, became a coach. Like the first thing I did, and I was like, oh, I need to learn how to work out. Going to do my CrossFit level 1. Like,
I mean, a lot of people do it.
For sure. Like, a little bit overkill, it's more about you coaching other people, but it was great for what I used it for. So very fortunate that I had sort of that guidance. Got there, did that, became a coach, was working at a Good Life, spent like 2 years there, 3 years there. Actually loved it. A lot of people complain about sort of working at Good Life and working with Good Life clientele. I loved it, to be honest. And I didn't know too much better, but I was working 70-hour weeks, loved my clients. Like, other than the fact that you aren't making great money, like you're making enough at the time, you're like a young kid, 25 or whatever, it's okay. not great cash, and loved that job. Did some coaching at a nearby Good Life or CrossFit gym, and
Okay.
I was eventually offered a job at a much more sort of stable organization, completely outside of the realm of fitness. It was working at a steel mill and in
Okay.
Whitby. And I had like a hard time sort of making the transition. It was like a girlfriend's father. He was very polite, very nice about it. He had a lot of great points as to like why it would be an improvement in my life. Talked to my own family about it, my own mother, right? Someone who's like hard into the fitness world. I'm like, what are your thoughts? So it'd be good for your experience. And this was the part that sort of like got to me a little bit was you're never going to make money in fitness. I was like, shit,
Mhm.
man, this is somebody who kind of knows, right?
Yeah.
And I let that steer me away. And I was brokenhearted. Like, honest to God, like when I finally made the decision, tears. Like I was crying. I was having a really hard time with it because A, I loved what I was doing. And B, I loved the people I was serving.
Hmm.
They felt like family in a way. And, you can say goodbye to family because you're going to see them again. But in this case, it was like I was leaving them into the hands of somebody else who, like, how can I trust somebody else, especially at a Good Life? So I left, did the other job for a bit, got another even more impressive job after that. And through that whole time, I was still coaching, just not as much as as I was before. And eventually, you're hit with the reality that I was chasing things that were external to my true values and my true motivations in life and sort of my true purpose. And as much as I wanted to align with those things and I wanted to be the kind of person who was like, I fit into this box and everyone likes me when I fit in this box and life is comfortable and I'm making the people around me happy, I wasn't making myself happy at
Hmm.
all. And so I was able to, through the graces of good support in terms of my lovely girlfriend and some good friend networks that were sort of were doing impressive things and were connected to impressive people. I was able to find my way to some level of coaching that finally got me to break the cycle and go back to what I loved.
Hmm.
And while there's been pain during that process, there's been a lot more positivity and definitely a brighter horizon for me than had I stayed sort of doing, the typical sort of 9 to 5. This is the
Yeah.
respectable job, son. Wasn't working for me, so yeah, that's the story.
It's, I'm always fascinated because I find that's, and this might be a chauvinistic way to look at it, but I find for men, a lot of the time, our journey of self discovery does hinge greatly on our choice of vocation, right? As we change careers and look to our development as men, there's something about the job that tends to define us. And it's not, this isn't for everybody. Like we all have those friends who don't love their jobs. They go there, they trade their 40 hours during the week for
Mhm.
the 5 days during the week for the 2 days on the weekend. They have their financial stability. They're able to spend time with their children, whatever. But for those of us that do venture into entrepreneurship, I find that there's, a tremendous amount of learning opportunity that comes about from that. And it seems like for you, it was almost like a dichotomy between stability and passion. And you mentioned before the podcast, you have almost made it a point to always lean into passion. Sorry,
Yeah.
where'd
No.
that come from?
Where did that come from? It came from, first of all, it wasn't all internal. There was always that in there. There was like a desire for that for sure. But there was so many fears wrapped up around that. There was, like you say, the dichotomy between sort of like going towards building something of my own, something I'm passionate about and that breathes life into me versus like something that gives me stability. And in my youngest years, I had no stability. I moved once a year, every year until I was in high school. My parents were divorced. There was always uncertainty and certain amount of, having some certainty and having some stability felt amazing. But when I finally got to a place where I was ready to make that leap, it was the guidance that I had around me, the positive influences that I had around me that were able to convince me finally that I'm never going to survive by just getting by.
Hmm.
That's not enough for me. I need to thrive, or I'm not going to be alive in the, philosophical and in the literal sense. I'm just not going to make it. I decided that the passion on a personal level is something I had to lean into, because I did get to a point where I was, unfortunately, like suicidal, taken to a place where doing the thing that I thought was respectable and I thought was, commendable and the right thing to do, was pushing me to the end of an early life, unfortunately. And so I had to lean into the passions, because I knew the other one just wasn't an option. It just was not serving me anymore. It couldn't work, right? Like it was a round peg in a square hole, whichever one doesn't fit. So that's why I came to passion in the end. And I'm still like very much trying to lean into that, trying to get better at that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But that's definitely like the crux of it, or like where it started from, was this deep, deep pain and realizing that I wasn't going to make it if I kept just doing enough to get by. And luckily I had really good people around me, or else who knows?
I mean, obviously, full disclosure, Brandon and I have been working together in a mentorship capacity for a while. And so I've kind of seen this evolution of you as a coach, and also you as a person. When we met, your transition into coaching was kind of by circumstance, right? Because you had been presented with a situation at work that rendered you in this position of not being at work anymore.
Yep.
And you're like, okay, I cannot go back to this. Are you comfortable sharing kind of the circumstances around that?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I think some people might resonate with it.
I think so too. That's why I was hopeful that you would say yeah.
Sure. Yeah, no problem. Let's see. I was doing a job that I think anybody would look at, and if they were being honest, they would say that's an important job to do. I was a police officer, and I had multiple roles during my time when I was a police officer. I was a detective. I did specialized units. I even did social media for the police for a period of time.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Yeah. Came up with education campaigns and went out there and did presentations for the old folks communities. It was fantastic. And when I went there and I went into that occupation, there was, part of it was like, I'm searching for, again, the stability. I want to contribute. I want to be a part of something that's bigger than myself. And I want to grow as a person. And a lot of those boxes got checked real quick. And then there was just sort of a sense of like stagnation, unfortunately. And the environment wasn't very conducive to continued growth. Really a very much crabs in the bucket mentality there, unfortunately. And I saw people who were excellent officers, amazing. The kind of people that, like, if something bad happened to your family member, you'd want them to come tell you.
Right.
And I saw people tearing them down. Oh God, like not just like, linguistically, not just like saying mean things about them, saying it behind their back, and then doing whatever they could to like impede their progress as an officer in making progress. And so that starts to hurt, because you're like, man, what a weird community. We're supposed to be like, we're serving the public. We're supposed to be serving each other as well. And so that starts to like degrade your sense of value for this thing. Like, does this align with me as a person? So that happens. And then the tragedies start to happen, and they start to compound, and you can see some stuff in your day. And like, I can look at like blood and, like I can look at ick, the things that people would usually be like, that's gross, and I never want to see that again, and it scars them. And I can look at that, and that's not a problem. It doesn't scare me. But when you look at the human stories behind these events, and you start to see what led these people to take their own lives, take the lives of another. And then the stories of the people who are left behind. There was one mother who, her son was supporting the family, essentially working 2-3 jobs, came home one morning and took his own life. And I was there with the mother all day. And at the end, she couldn't see me go. She was like, you remind me too much of my son. And she wanted to hug. And man,
Jesus.
Broke me up pretty bad. And not only because there's a sense of helplessness, but because there's a sense that we weren't doing enough for the community on a organizational level. And so you feel like you're this useless fly on the wall there to take a report. Felt gross. And then it felt grosser still because I knew that by my standards, I wasn't the man or the person that I wanted to be that could really meet this person on the level that they needed in that moment.
Mm.
And that I didn't have the familial experience to like really, really resonate with what they were feeling. I mean, I felt it. Like, it was pain. Don't get me wrong. My mother's like the fucking best. Like, I love the bejesus out of her. And if I see a woman suffering, I kind of like see my mom. So I go there.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt like a fraud. And that made it worse, made it more painful. And then there was no one to go to in my organization to be like, hey, like, this is like a problem that's starting to rack up in my head. And so there's just this like profound sense of loneliness, this profound sense of helplessness, this profound sense of like being in the wrong place at the wrong time, not the right person yet. Like, I had like cut off some route to personal growth that would have otherwise made me such a great person. And I don't want to toot my own horn, but I think we all have the ability to be great. It's just like the path to get there is not the same for all of us. And the final straw for me was I started to have those thoughts. I started to have like there's something wrong with me. I'm not, the man I should be. I'm letting myself down. I'm letting my future self down. I'm letting my family down. All these thoughts compounding, and then I'm alone in that process. And I was starting to feel that way, and I started to feel like, unfortunately, suicide was like this thing I started to think about often. And I started to think about it in a very particular way, where I was like, I think it's going to come for me. And I don't know why I said it that way in my head, but that's the way I said it. And then one night, there's a jumper. And we get there before he has a chance to jump, grab the guy before he sees us coming, pull him off the ledge, and tears running down his face. And he's saying to me the exact same things that I had in my head at the time.
Jesus Christ.
Like, I felt alone. I felt hopeless. Nobody understood. I'm not the man I'm supposed to be. It's going to come for me. And I was like, okay, something's wrong here. Like, he was saying my words to me, and I felt his pain. And I was like, Jesus Christ. And every fiber of my being wanted to escape that moment. Every fiber of my being wanted to like be there and help this guy and tell him like, I understand. I just couldn't bring myself to do it at that time. And I stuck with him and processed and did all that stuff. But that was it. That was the last straw. That was the time when I was like, I need to work on me.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to become that person so that I can resist any of these things. And I need to do it in a place where all of this that is sort of built up behind me, all of this, excitement for the future in getting into fitness, all of this like deep yearning to be an asset to the people around me and to improve the lives of the people around me and connect with them on a deeper level. I need to roll that all into something that makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Fitness and coaching and teaching. I went to school for education as well, by the way. And so the teaching aspect just sort of made sense. So it all rolled into this. And thank God it's been amazing.
Well, first of all, that was super powerful. And I appreciate your honesty and candor in sharing that with both myself and the audience. I'd like to think that we're just talking to each other, but people are going to hear this, and I think it's going to resonate with them a lot, because the first thing that might come to mind if you're just listening to this is like, how in any way is he equating coaching fitness to saving people's lives?
Mm.
But anyone who says it like that has never actually coached fitness before in the way that coaching should be done.
Mm-hmm.
Coaching is in and of itself like a tremendously powerful relationship between you and the person that you're serving. And I'm just thinking of like, I often hear about, I was working at a gym and I was limited in my ability to help people because of the rules of the gym. there's a parallel there, right? You're working for a police department. There are guidelines, there are regulations. You hit the nail on the head when you said, "Oh, I'm just a fly on the wall taking a report." So how much am I actually helping this person other than preventing them from taking their life? Right? You saved that guy's life that day. Who knows what the future held for that person? And you're not even in a position to follow through and see him after that day. But in that moment, you saved his life. And I think transitioning that into the idea of, well, let's remove the bureaucracy. Let's be the person who drives the ship, and let's find a way where we can meaningfully impact somebody on a daily basis. The other thing that I think people forget about coaching is that there are secondary and tertiary effects of working with somebody in this capacity. I say it all the time. Like, if you want a window into someone's psychology, take away their food or make them train really hard. You immediately figure out what kind of person that is. And you and I are both testaments to the powerful changes that can take place through fitness in our lives. I've never personally been suicidal, but I know for myself, like, all of my personal development journey has been centered around a barbell, and which I'm sure it has for you as well.
Mm-hmm.
So how can we then transition that into a coaching service that teaches other people those same lessons that we were able to learn? So I guess the question then becomes, you're building this business, you are leaning into passion. You said before the podcast, you said, I'll always lead into passion because everything is going to be painful, but with passion, you get a better payoff.
Yeah.
How have you found leaning into this passion to have that payoff?
There's a few ways, and I think we were kind of joking about this maybe a week ago, but the idea that building a business is essentially like a personal growth vehicle masquerading as a capitalist pursuit. I think it's James Clear says that.
Yeah,
it's very true, and it's very, very much like an allegory for fitness as well. Like building the best version of yourself physically. It's something that is basically a personal growth vehicle masquerading as like a vanity project or a physical transformation or whatever, right?
Vanity. I like that. A vanity project.
Yeah. Like, that's sort of like my,
want to be pretty,
Sure. I think that's like a little more my bent is I see that more for people and for myself, where it's like what brings a lot of people to fitness is just straight up, they want to look better naked. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? It got you there, it got you healthier, probably took you away from other negative aspects of your life. Super awesome. So, sorry, I actually got a little bit lost. Can you rephrase the last bit of that question?
Yeah, for sure. So, you're getting out of policing, you're leaning into this new passion. Talk to me a little bit about like maybe the pains that have come from that you maybe were expecting or weren't expecting.
Oh gosh. Yeah. So when I started, opened the business day one, it's all rosy, right? It's all fun and games, and you know it's going to be a great time. You're not exactly sure how or where things are going, but you're just excited, right? Full of life. And then the pain comes when you realize, like, yeah, you started it, but you're just not that good at it, man. And if you can get over that pain, and continue to like push into it, then you start to see areas where you are good at.
Yep.
But then you get to this new horizon, and you're like, you're looking over the top of it, and you realize there's new opportunities there, but all those opportunities come with other little micro pains along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's so true, man.
And that can suck. Like, it can, I've had a mindset previously that had a hard time with that. But the more that I've leaned into it, and the more that I've like absorbed the sort of more conscientious qualities of people who I admire, as I can, and I've done a lot with like cutting out just negative information sources, like just politics, for example, like get rid of the politics and stuff like that has been a thing for me. The more that I was able to do, the more I was able to see like purpose in the pain, and the more I was able to apply myself to the things that were likely to bring me some pain, but more likely were to bring me a measure of happiness and fulfillment. And because of what I'm doing, because, I'm leaning into this thing that I love, my pain and my, you know, my positivity and like the good things that it brings that for somebody else as well.
Yeah.
Somebody else is getting benefit out of that. And it just keeps rolling forward into bigger and better things and to a bigger, better version of me. 100%. So I don't know where that line is for like everybody, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, we all have it, but there seems to be like this threshold that once crossed, there just doesn't feel like there's a going back. And not in the sense of like I'm trapped, in the sense of like I've grown into this new person.
Yeah.
I can never like become that other thing again. I can only become like a better version, reiterated upon over and over again until it's all over. Right? Like I don't ever see myself stopping improving at this point. And then there will be a new passion, right? There will
Yeah.
be like, yes, I'm always going to be teaching people and coaching people for sure, because there are always going to be new horizons that I'm going to be reaching by leaning into this thing. There's always some way to improve, and that's exciting. It feels good.
Hell yeah.
It just takes a minute to get there.
For sure. I think I was smiling while you were talking because I'm reminded of like me as a young coach. Man, I thought I knew everything. I had a great, like, I thought I had my dream job coaching 15 teams. I knew everything. And then any affront to my knowledge base, like anyone who would prove me wrong, I'd like almost take personal offense to it.
Mhm.
And then I see kind of the mindset shift over the last, I guess that was 11 years ago when I had that job. I see the mindset shift that took place where now I actively look for things that I'm that I do poorly or that I'm bad at, because I see those as opportunities for self-improvement. I see that as an opportunity to be like, okay, this is something I can learn. This is something I can be better at. And for the reasons you outlined perfectly, it's I can be better at this so that the people I serve get more from me.
Mhm.
Um, there's a lot of quotes that come up about life being like, I mean, Buddha said life is suffering.
Mhm.
And then you have, my goodness, Frank, Dr. Frankel, who's saying, you have to find meaning in your suffering.
Mhm.
And then you look at the myth of Sisyphus talking about pushing a rock up a hill. You and I talked about that last week in our call. Like the myth of Sisyphus from Albert Camus is essentially like you have to picture Sisyphus smiling, because even though he's pushing a rock up the hill for the rest of his life, he has the opportunity to push a rock up a hill. And when you look at life and learning and personal development as a journey with no end, you have to smile about that, lifetime of learning and opportunity. And that is, like you said, there's a line that you cross. There's a switch that you flip, where once you flip that thing and you have that mindset shift, not only do so many more opportunities present themselves, but you're in a position where you see even more opportunities that haven't presented themselves yet. And it gets exciting.
Mhm. Mhm.
You had the opportunity a couple weeks ago to go to your first like in-person conference. And I remember I'm like, I knew two things were going to happen. I knew you were going to come back and you're going to have like information overload and complete like shiny object syndrome.
Yeah.
But what I was hoping that you would see, and you did, was that you're really good at some shit. Like you are really, really good at some stuff,
Mhm.
but there's also areas to improve. And that's exciting.
Yep. One of the coolest takeaways I think I had from the conference was, yes, like you say, there's clearly some areas where I have capability and I'm good at some shit. Fucking awesome. Sweet. I needed that. Thank you, conference. And then there was the other side that they were very honest about. Like, there is some shit that you suck at. And it was like, gosh, like I appreciate that kind of honesty, right? You know, takes that question out of the dark and just puts it on display. And it's like, yeah, you suck at this. Not a big deal. Let's move on and find a way to get better, right? And then the final piece was to see, again, this is like that piece about like horizons, where when I first got into the coaching, like I was saying, like online coaching specifically. It was just all like, rainbows and roses. It was awesome. Everything seemed like a bright new horizon. It was spectacular.
Macros, sets and reps. Let's go.
Yeah, like no problem, right? Let's get people jacked. Let's make people look good naked. This is going to be sweet, right?
Yeah.
And at some point, and this is like probably a mistake that I made, but maybe other people have made as well.
I guarantee you are not unique in making mistakes. So
I'm very not unique, super duper average. Where you start to look at the people who you're like kind of looking up to, and you're like, well, how the hell can I do that? They've already done it. And I'm not even sure if I resonate with what they've done necessarily. I don't see myself like in that space. And you start to figure it out as you go that like, okay, I don't have to be them to be successful. Sweet.
Mm-hmm.
But that was made exceptionally stark and very clear at this presentation, because like no one's presentation was any bit like somebody else's, right? Everyone had a different perspective and a different view as to like the mosaic, the many different routes that you could potentially take to success, however it is you measure that, right? But for most people, it means like some degree of financial freedom and some degree of impact and fulfillment in your chosen vocation. So all of the people that were giving presentations had those things, and they were all doing it in very, very different ways. And again, that just builds a certain level of excitement, because there's not too much that's like sexy about maintenance, and there's not too much that's sexy about like copy pasting somebody else's methodologies. But there is a lot of excitement in finding what works best for you and finding yourself in that process at the same time. Again, I want to go back to that piece about it being like a personal improvement vehicle. It really, really is. And so when you get to wake up every morning and you get to say, today is going to be a great day because I'm going to help people and I'm going to help myself in that process. Man, that's juicy stuff.
What I think you hit a nail on too is like, one thing that you'll notice about a lot of the people that are at the pinnacle of our industry, you think of the people who have established themselves as the guy or the girl in a certain niche. Look at someone like Ali Gilbert.
Yeah.
Ali didn't start off as a men's health coach. She started off coaching golf. Right? It just so happened that a lot of her clients were middle-aged men complaining that they couldn't get their dick hard. Mm-hmm. So she went in. So she's like, well, I guess if I got to help these people, I got to learn about getting your dick hard. So she jumped into being, the queen of men's health. And if I look at my own journey, I started off in collegiate strength and conditioning. Then I tried my go at personal training, hated it. Went into the private sector as, insurance disability rehabilitation. Mm. I didn't hate that. I actually really liked my job. Then I went in, when I started online coaching, it was purely powerlifters. Then I started coaching nutrition. Then I started coaching more so like lifestyle, even like pseudo bodybuilders. Then I coach bodybuilders now too. I still coach some professional athletes. I still coach some collegiate athletes. But then I got into mentorship. And you talk about these horizons that present themselves. Nothing was forced. And I think a lot of people do try to force it.
Yeah.
It's like if I build it, they will come. The more time I spend in this industry, that always fails.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? You need to establish yourself in a certain capacity and then solve the problems of the people that come to you. Mm-hmm. I remember when Meredith was my first like official mentorship client. And I remember she asked me, she's like, do you offer mentorship? My response was no, but we could try it.
Sweet.
Right. And then, so she signed on with me, and then that spurned the development of the mentorship as it exists today. And who knows what the next horizon is going to be for me, but I know that it's going to happen organically because over the course of all of these things, I've just continued to develop myself, and then the horizons present. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When you see these people at the pinnacle of our industry, whether online or in person, and I think number one, in asking these questions, I do want to highlight, like, I'm diving into this because I think your journey as a coach who's relatively young in the industry, you've been coaching for a really long time, but specifically in the online field, I think your journey will resonate with a lot of people. And I think your insights are incredibly valuable. So when you see these people, do you tend to set goals of, I want to accomplish X, or I want to launch X product or X service? Or does it more so just cause you to lean into what you're doing? Because a lot of people, like myself included, I went to my first business conference and I started thinking a lot externally. But the more I chased that, the further away it got.
Mm-hmm.
How was that for you?
I think you know me well enough that
Mhm.
I've made the mistake of putting the horse before the cart a number of times.
Yep.
Shiny object syndrome is a problem that I've dealt with as well. Fortunately, at least my exposure to a lot of these people in the industry who are doing things that I want to do and excelling at a level I want to excel at, it doesn't give me that sense like I'm doing that. They make me want to be the best version of myself in what I'm currently doing. Right? I was like, okay, they've done it. They've done these things, and they've done next tier things that are like, oh, of course, yeah, I'm excited to do that. But I do have an understanding, or at least a sense, that the right thing for me in this case is to, again, continue to become the best version of myself and continue to hone my current coaching business and my current skills to such a degree that it's, I went to the dentist the other day, and the dentist is, I'm laying back in the chair and his hands are just moving all across my face, like super quick, super fast, super smooth, right? Grabbing things, no like jerkiness, right? Like he's like very smooth about it. I was floored because you're drilling a hole in my head. I was getting a cavity filled. He's drilling a hole in my head, right? And he's so calm about it. Like he's talking to his nurse assistant, and they have like this lingo and this language that I don't understand most of it, but
Right.
they're super fluid with it. They're so like in the zone. I loved it. And I'm paying attention to that, thank God, and not the drill in my mouth, right? And I get the sense that that's more of what I want to cultivate in what I am now and who I am now and what my business is now, so that I can get to a place where his staff is just so bought in, right? They were into his lingo. They were into his style of leadership, and they were totally sold on it. And everyone's happy. I've been going there long enough. Everyone enjoys that place. Everyone that works there, everyone that goes there, it's friggin' sweet. And I want to cultivate that in myself, and I want to cultivate that in my business. So when you say like, what do I want to do first? Definitely I set that goal first. I'm like, I want to become more like these people, the kind of people who can accomplish X, Y, and Z things, right? Who can lead at X, Y, and Z level. But then, yes, there is another piece a little bit further back in my head that's like, I want to stand on that stage one day. Ooh, right? It's like juicy and exciting, but I understand that there's a price to be paid first, and I gotta pay it. So
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I really appreciate in coaches when they say like, yeah, I got to earn my keep first.
oh yeah.
I got to put in the time, I got to put in the reps. It's the same way in training. Like, oh man, like how did you squat 800 pounds? I'm like, well, I squatted 300 pounds first.
Yep. Yep.
I'm not going to squat 800 pounds ever again, but I know the path to get there. And I think that's the next piece that I want to ask you about. How has your own personal fitness journey played a role in your coaching?
Actually, that's a really interesting question. My own fitness journey has very much been pretty varied for sure. Like when I first started working out with my mom, right? It was like P90X videos in the basement. Awesome.
Muscle confusion.
Yeah, it was the best. Tony Horton, whatever his name was, hilarious. and then running, right? Did some running and did some long distance races and stuff like that. And then got more serious about working out. Did like the traditional bro split stuff, and then got serious into CrossFit for like a solid 5 years. And, the pandemic of unknown origins occurred. And now we are, and you can't do CrossFit. All the gyms are closed, right? So
Right.
made a gym in my own 1-bedroom apartment, turned the living room into a whole gym. It's awesome. Got super strong. And at the end of that, I was like, do I go back to CrossFit? No, I think I want to be jacked. I want to look good naked, right? And now it's like I'm well on that way. Like
You're well on your way to looking good naked?
I'm mostly looking good naked. And from
How
at
does
least from the
MJ
waist
feel
up.
about that?
Sorry?
How does MJ feel about that?
Puts a bag on my head. Turn off the lights. It's not for her. It's for me. So how has that influenced sort of my perspectives or my training with my clients is I think that it's allowed me a lot more flexibility when it comes to who I can coach and how I can coach them.
Totally.
And it allows me to sort of connect with people who are coming from a high intensity fitness kind of background, which is a lot of people. Like a lot of people think that the way to achieve a better physique, which is really what, so many people are after that. Like I know that you coach a lot of people who are performance athletes, straight up.
Yeah, but the majority are just people who want to train like performance athletes, but they genuinely just want to perform better in their daily lives.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of them want to look better and be more confident, right?
For sure.
And so I resonate very well with those people and with those perspectives, but I'm also able to kind of meet them a little bit more in the middle. I can find a place where it's okay, you were more doing performance, high intensity stuff here, but now you're wanting to have a better body and a better understanding of how can I work out and not destroy myself in the gym 6 days a week and still look the same from one year to the next, right? So I have a bit more empathy for those people, and I think I'm able to connect with them a little bit better. Fortunately, because I have those experiences, because I've been the new guy in the bodybuilding, the new guy in the CrossFit, the new guy in the powerlifting, right? I've had a bit of all those experiences.
I think the key word there is empathy, right? I think by pursuing a high level of fitness for ourselves and the struggles that come, we develop an empathy for that person who might be just getting started or who might need to break down some limiting beliefs. Even the limiting belief of if I don't leave the gym exhausted every day, I'm not making progress. Listen, some of my best workouts, I leave the gym feeling pretty not bad. Mm-hmm. Some of my worst workouts, I leave the gym feeling like complete garbage and having set myself back. I think another piece there is when you're pursuing something at a very high level, you realize that what's hard for you is impossible for somebody else. Mm-hmm. And what's pedestrian for you is hard for someone else. I was having a conversation this morning with another former mentee, good buddy of mine, Tyson Demaray. And we were talking about those coaches who will be like, oh, just track your macros. It's easy. Just journal. It's easy. But what a lot of people who have those feelings neglect is that what's easy for you in your situation as a coach who works for themselves, works from home, can train whenever they want, isn't the same reality as somebody who has 3 kids, a full-time job, and doesn't have the requisite tools to be able to execute that plan. But when you've learned new skills and when you've been the beginner, right? I was there too. I did, you did your first show, I think a couple months after I did my first show.
Yep.
No, about a year after.
Yeah, because I did mine last September and yours.
Yeah, about a year. So it was about a year difference. So man, I was a beginner. I'd never done a bodybuilding show. I had to learn how to pose. I had to learn how to do all this stuff. And I remember training legs with you that one day and just going through a couple of your mandatories, and you just kind of lap it up being a beginner and having the opportunity to learn stuff. And I think that gives us a unique ability to relate to people. The other thing that you hit home about that I think is important is you have a lot of tools in your toolbox, right? So that person who does enjoy high intensity exercise, well, you can program them WODs within their bodybuilding work. right? Myself with the performance background. It's like if someone wants to jump higher while still improving their, their lower body musculature, well, I can put in some plyometrics in your workout in a way that's not going to take away from your hypertrophy.
Mm.
Right. And I think the more that we as coaches dive into our own personal journeys, it only serves to improve the quality of our coaching.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That's the value of continuous education, continuous growth, and continually putting yourself in uncomfortable situations. Because it builds that empathy, right? Like I went to that seminar. I knew it was going to be uncomfortable for me. There were a lot of reasons why I was like, oh, okay, this is a chasm, somewhat of a dichotomy between what I would usually do and what I'm currently doing. And I'm learning that I've got way, way more to do. And even just after that, I came back and I just had a deeper empathy for my clients, for sure, because there's areas in which my clients are incredibly successful themselves and very strong in, and they could probably teach me and under the table.
Yeah, for sure.
But this is my domain. This is an area in which I'm strong, and so it's my responsibility to continue to push into that and continue to lean into that and seek answers for them. Right? I don't want to be like that 65-year-old jaded general practitioner doctor who's like, you go in trying to tell him that you feel like you're dying, and he's like, he hasn't studied a new thing in 20 years, and he feels like he's heard it all, right? I don't want
you look healthy.
Yeah, you look fine. Take your pills. Okay, thanks. Right? I don't want that. I want to always be like curious about my people.
Okay, here's an interesting thought experiment. Do you feel that as you get more advanced and you pursue a higher level of specificity in your goals, that decreases the flexibility you have as a coach?
Ooh, frig. I think it threatens to.
Yep.
And I think it probably does on a sort of like acute short-term perspective, right? Like you start to dive into something new or something like sort of more advanced than what you were doing before. And if you're the kind of person who's been like pursuing a level of excellence in fitness, there's a good chance you're the kind of person who like really dives into the thing. Mm-hmm. You're like, oh, okay, I am a powerlifter now. I'm getting all the equipment, all the thickest belts. I'm training, 6 times per week. And then I've got my recovery sessions with my chiropractor. I'm going to be doing cold plunges. Like that's like sort of the mindset that these people come to often. And so when you do that, I think you tend to sort of like leave some stuff behind and you really hyper focus on this for a bit. But then it does, I find, at least for me, sort of level out at a period of time where, yes, I'm still doing the new thing and I'm still applying myself at an advanced level, but I also sort of come back to some degree to some of the more foundational pieces that brought me there in the first place. And so I think it always threatens to do so. But again, if you're applying yourself diligently in your new practice, but you're always still working on becoming the best version of yourself and growing and really trying to do the absolute best you can for the people you serve, mm-hmm. It just, that pendulum swings back, right? But it doesn't swing back at the same level. It swings back at a slightly higher level than it did before. So yes, there might be a short term like, I'm kind of dropping the ball in ways that I really wish I didn't, right? But because I did that, because I went into that area of discomfort, I was eventually able to pick those balls up and add a few new ones to it.
Yeah. I think you went in a different direction answering the question, and I really actually like that perspective. No, it's great. Because at some point, if you're pursuing a high level of anything, I've even preemptively been like, hey, I'm 2 weeks out from my meet. These are going to be a couple changes that I make to the coaching for these next 2 weeks. Or, hey, I'm a month out from my show. This is how we're going to change what we're doing. Whatever. Where the question was more so geared towards like, you kind of hit on it a little bit. It's like you learn all these new, more advanced things. Mm. And so when you learn a new tool, I think the tendency for a lot of us is to kind of leave the old tools in the back and like forget about them. You have that dusty tool drawer that you don't necessarily touch anymore, even though those tools worked, but you got this brand new hammer. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, the old hammer worked really well too. Mm-hmm. And I think I saw it with even myself after coaching for almost 20 years, as I dove more into, deeper nutrition knowledge. And now that I'm looking into functional health, I'm finding myself being reminded that, hey, just because you have these new tools, don't forget the foundational stuff.
Mm.
Don't forget that you can't get to, gut health without going through eating a few times a day, prioritizing protein and whole foods. So there's levels to it. And I think that we could tend, and your answer was perfect, we could tend towards brand new fancy thing
Mm.
and leave behind foundational knowledge.
Yeah.
Dude, this is I think I said it during the podcast, and I think, it needs to be repeated that your journey is going to be echoed by a lot of people, because a lot of the people that I meet in a mentorship capacity. I mean, I hopped on a call with a gentleman today who ultimately decided to do the mentorship. So you'll meet him soon.
Good choice. Good choice.
Yeah, good choice. He's, looking at his career, and he's always trained people. He's always coached people, but he's never leaned into it. He works a sales job during the day. He's got 3 kids, a wife, and he's finally at a position where, he wants to dive in. And I found myself iterating to him a lot of the same things that you hit on today of like, hey, this is going to be hard. This is going to expose a lot of the parts of you that you didn't know were there. This is going to be an exercise in patience, especially when you want to do it right. Actually, final like real question before we get into some bullshit.
All right.
As you are, because you started building your business when social media was at its peak in terms of fitness.
Yeah.
How did you stay away from, we'll call it, the traps of predatory marketing, DMing all of your followers, sell, versus the way you operate your business right now, which is with integrity from a focus on service?
How did I stay away from that trap? You know what? It didn't resonate with me to go that route in the first place,
Mm-hmm.
but I understand why someone would.
Okay.
And
Let's go into that, please. Yes.
I do. I see these people out there who, like the Joel Seedmans of the world, who are creating content largely to get eyeballs. And that's kind of, in a large way, what social media has become in a lot of ways, for sure. So I can understand why people would seek that reward, because it's like, it's right there, right? It's
Yeah.
like if you walk into a buffet and the first thing you walk into is the dessert table. It's like, man, you're gonna grab some desserts, right? Like you just have to.
It's a rookie mistake if you don't, let's be honest.
True,
You
right?
go to a buffet, it's dessert first, then main course, then dessert third.
And yeah, and it's like, right, you're getting the reward right up front, and it feels amazing, right?
There you go.
You earned it, right? And I think that's what a lot of these people are sort of getting sucked into when they do that style, and then they're succeeding doing it, right? They're making some amount of impact. They're getting eyeballs. Who knows if they're making money? Some of them certainly are. Joel Seaman, I'm sure, is doing fine, right? So I get it. I do. It just doesn't resonate with my particular style. If we go back to sort of what I was saying in the beginning, where it was like I started my coaching education with CrossFit Level 1, which isn't like a super duper course or anything like that. It was like, what, $1,200 at the time? Not super expensive.
It's like $2,000 now.
Yeah. USD, I'm pretty sure too.
Yep.
And so like that was like my first step into, I want to start working with people. And it wasn't until about 2 years later that I actually applied it to working with people, right? I applied that for 2 years on myself. And then I was like, okay, I like this. I've done things for myself. I'm going to now do things for people. And I sort of approached this business the same way, where I was like, I want to show some value first. I want to show a certain amount of like, I'm in this legit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to make a bunch of mistakes in the meantime. I'm going to probably say some dumb stuff. I'm going to make some posts that are just like, I'll look back at them now and be like, oh God. Right? But I'm not going to do the hard salesy thing, maybe there will be a time when I want to do more of the sales thing, but I'm just not there yet. And I don't think I necessarily need to, and I'm not in a rush to get there. So
I think that's a key point. You're not in a rush, but also if we come back to the real reason you dove back into coaching and made it a business was so you could help people. And so if you approach your like every aspect of your business, from the marketing to the service delivery to the care, that does not align with predatory marketing strategies. So if you just peel back that layer and say, does this align with my personal values? And you uphold that, to me, that is one of the first steps in creating a sustainable business.
Mhm.
Because if you build a business devout of values, you will fail.
Yeah, I 100% agree. You often have said to me, like, as I elevate myself, I elevate my business. And I think elevating your sort of moral perspective on what you're doing and how you're trying to share yourself with the community is a part of that, for sure.
I love it. If there's
Oh,
one parting piece of what's that?
you know what I think would be kind of funny is there is one piece in that sort of realm where we sort of disagree, and we had like a little bit of a chat about it
Yeah.
way back.
Yeah.
And this is one area where I think that I would totally go down sort of that more like markety route, and it would be in like putting ads on dating sites.
So I've actually changed my mind on this.
Oh shit!
I've actually changed my mind on this because,
Bookmark this part, folks.
yeah, bookmark this. Paul admits he was wrong. That's going to be the title of the podcast. No, so you have to go where the people that you want to help are. So if you are building a business with the values based in service to people who want to increase their confidence, they want to look better naked.
Yes.
Those type of people are probably the ones who are also looking for a partner. So if you're looking to go the route of paid ads, targeting people on dating apps or dating sites, or maybe even if it's a Facebook ad and you target it towards people who have downloaded these apps, because you can get really granular with the targeting. I don't think that's nefarious. I don't.
Yeah.
I had an issue with you had mentioned like Tinder and that sort of thing, and I think that's where it's like, what's the intent of the app? Is it like a hookup app, or is it actually like, I want to find a partner?
True. Yeah.
Right. And I think, again, coming back to what do you want to be known for? I would rather be known as the guy who is so say we're targeting men. I'd much rather be known as the coach who helped men improve their confidence, their performance, their body composition, so that they had the ability to pursue a partner, versus the guy who got guys in shape so they could bang a ton of chicks.
Yeah, that is a big
There's a bit of a contrast there.
for sure. For sure.
After I just admitted that I changed my mind and I was wrong. Is there any parting piece of wisdom that you would have for the audience before we hop off?
Oh gosh. Wisdom, man. It's tough to find these days. So I would go back to that piece about like passion in the onset. The people who steered me away from doing what I'm doing now had my best intentions in mind. They did. They loved me, right? They cared about me.
For sure.
They wanted me to be safe. But they didn't know me well enough to understand that being safe was not enough for me to survive. It was not enough for me to thrive.
Mm-hmm.
And so spending that time to really know what you are, who you are, what matters to you is going to be worth its weight in gold. It's going to be worth more than probably any university degree you can get or any amount of approval that you might seek from an external source, because it's going to be the thing that leads you to doing whatever work, whatever project, whatever purpose you have in this world to the best of your ability, helping the most people and becoming the best version of yourself. And if you shirk that, you're going to be in pain and you might end up just coming back to it eventually anyway. And that's good. Okay, good job. You found your way back. But you could very well not find your way back. You could very well end up like I did, very close to ending everything, unfortunately. So,
way to leave shit on a fucking super sad note.
Fuck.
Dude, I really appreciated this conversation. It was, it was incredible to hear, the deeper details of your story, because that's actually something that you've never shared with me. It's like the full story of, what spurned your decision ultimately to transition into coaching. And I think your journey will really resonate with a lot of people. And I'll have links to where everyone can find you in the show notes. So thank you very much for being on the podcast with me. And everyone, thank you so much for joining. Please make sure to like, share, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. And we'll catch you on the next one.